Hi everyone. We've got my co-host on here, Nina.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here.
Super excited to have you here. So I'm gonna give a quick background and then I'll turn it over to you, Nina, and then you can tell us your background, how you got into the space. But if you guys don't know Nina, follow her right now. She's absolutely incredible. I love the way she speaks on this topic. She's kind. She doesn't make you feel bad about it. But I'm Marcella, domestic abuse advocate, narcissistic abuse advocate. I've been coaching people through trauma bonds, getting clarity on their situations, healing from emotional abuse, especially at the hands of a narcissist. And as somebody who endured that for a long time, I tried everything I could at the beginning to understand it, to understand why they act like this, how I can get out of it, how I can snap myself out of it. I wanted to share that with the world. And I know that there's so many people that are going through this and that it feels so much better to not be alone and to know that there's a community around it. So, with all that said, I would like to introduce Nina. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your background, how you got into the space?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Like she said, my name's Nina Batista. I am a licensed clinician and I'm also a survivor of narcissistic abuse. I was with the covert narcissist, all while being a therapist for years and had no idea until he discarded me on my deceased brother's birthday via text message while he went away on a business trip. And he did it over text, never saw him again, literally didn't come home to our house. And it was such like it was so life shattering to me. Like I felt like my soul was being sucked out of my body. I didn't know what to do. And I read this book and literally it was like psychopath free, all about relationships of narcissistic abuse, right? And I was like, this is my relationship. Like boom, everything that happened. I immersed myself, started doing a bunch of studying on narcissistic abuse, and I became passionate about helping other survivors. So I completely switched. I used to specialize in addiction, and then I switched over to survivors of domestic abuse. And now that's my niche now. I help other survivors heal from this insidious abuse. So here I am.
Wow. It's such important work. Thank you. Thank you for what you do and thank you for sharing that with us. I think especially when it comes to emotional abuse, people tend to minimize it because they're comparing it to physical abuse, and physical abuse leaves bruises. You go to the hospital, but with emotional abuse, there's scars that you just can't see. And so I think it shapes people's lives because it can be just as damaging and just as confusing. And when somebody says, at least he didn't hit you, I think it tells us a lot about the hierarchy that society places on suffering. Because emotional abuse gets dismissed. There's no hospital visit, there's no broken bone. But emotional abuse erodes your sense of self. And it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's quiet, it's invisible, but it's devastating. So I wanted to go through a couple of commonly asked questions, and then you guys feel free to ask your questions too, and we'll get to them either through our conversations or at the end. But why do you think people dismiss emotional abuse as not as serious?
So, really good question. And to your point, I think there's so many different reasons. One
Yeah.
being the invisible wounds. It's difficult to spot. It's so covert as well. So, some of the things, the emotional abuse can be wrapped in a joke. It can be wrapped in twisting, like, are you're the sensitive one? You can't take a joke, right? So, there's also this cultural conditioning that society uses when we think of abuse physical, there's scars, there's bruises, but we can't see the clear cuts of the emotional abuse that causes so much significant damage.
Yes.
Another reason also is that a lot of people normalize emotional abuse. If they were brought up in a house that had that yelling, their families created this gaslighting environment, they tend to think that this is how people engage in interactions. I think society also puts this narrative of love. We have to fight for it and we have to do all things possible in order to find the love of our life. So we tend to normalize this conflict and this chaos as if it's like this whirlwind of romance. And we're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. He loves me so much. That's why he's not letting me leave. Right? So we tend to normalize it and confuse it and distort it in our brains, and it can keep us stuck. And it's a really hard conceptualization to realize someone that I love is also causing me harm. That's not something that we want to accept. It's so bleak. So our brains try to rationalize and minimize it and try to find something that we can find the solution. So that's why we tend to blame ourselves a lot too, right? Our brain goes, it must be me, because then I can control it, I can change it, I can fix it.
Exactly. Especially when the other person isn't taking any accountability for it. To get that closure, you almost have to put the blame on yourself because it's the only way for you to start rationalizing things. The brain is a very tricky little organ.
It is, man. The brain can be a bitch. Sorry, excuse my language.
No,
Yeah,
we say it all on here. I think there's
that's
also
right.
this like comparison trap with survivors that it's other people have it worse and like at least he didn't hit me, and it's like this internal comparison that almost robs them of this permission to validate their own pain, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I also think because at least my ex used to say, no one's going to put up with your shit. So I started to believe, oh my God, maybe I'm the issue and no other man is going to put up with me. And you feel the scarcity mindset of, I need to stay in this relationship because no one else is going to love me. So they create this fear of that you're unworthy, you're unlovable, and they're the only person that are going to value you, even though they're not actually valuing you at all.
Exactly. And it's wait, I don't think I actually want to be treated like this. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
no, not at all. Because really, if we look at the facts, like I don't miss being gaslit and manipulated and lied to and name called. No, we don't miss that.
And
Yeah.
I think there's this idea that maybe we don't realize what's happening. I think there is a self-awareness that's there, but it's almost like I know that this is happening. I just don't know that there's a way out, or that it's like the gap between what we know we should do and what we actually do can be so big sometimes. So I
Mm,
think part of what you do in therapy and what I do in coaching is trying to like narrow that gap and to get people to give themselves clarity. It's no, you can actually take a step forward. If self-awareness is definitely the first part, but once you're self-aware, it's like it's on you to break the cycle because they're not going to break the cycle.
absolutely. And then we have to take into consideration how trauma impacts the brain, right? Because when we're constantly being gaslit and
Mm.
criticized, the part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex that thinks logically gets turned off. So when we're in it, we can't even see like the hope or the outcome of how it's going to be. We're literally just stuck in trauma, fight, flight, freeze, like, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that we're
Yeah.
just trying to survive. We're literally, our brain is shut off. We're just in survival mode. So we end up staying, right? And it takes 7 times for a survivor to leave. There's a reason because our brain's trying to help us survive. And then at one point we wake up and we're like, holy shit, like I don't need to be in this. Like for me, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't need to be in this. Like I don't want to put up with this shit anymore. And if the light bulb clicks on and we're like, this is not my life. This is not what I want for my life.
Wow. What was your light bulb moment? Because I had a light bulb moment too, and it's almost like it was a total 180 for me where I was like, oh shit, what is going on right now? I remember like feeling like outside of myself and being like, if my sister was in this situation, if my mom was in this situation, what would I tell them to do and why can't I take my own advice?
What was that like for you? What was the light bulb moment?
So I was in like a pretty physically abusive relationship and it got worse after we got married. I was married for 6 months, which
Oh
I felt
wow.
like a total failure for getting a divorce at 25, and I can talk about that later.
Mhm.
But I remember it was a moment where I was trying to leave the relationship. I think it had been like the 30th time I was trying to leave. And normally he would run after me every time, which made me feel so wanted and so chased. I think there's a part of ego that goes into this too. It's we want to feel chased.
Mhm.
We want them to hoover in a weird way. But I was trying to leave and he actually pulled a knife out on me. And he threatened to stab me and to kill me essentially. And I remember that he like jumped on top of me while I was like ducking for cover on the bed because I had nowhere to leave. He was blocking all the exits. The knife slipped out of his hand. I pushed him off me. I ran out into my car and he didn't run out after me like he normally does. And I was like, oh, wow. So I called my best friend. She didn't answer. Thank God she didn't, because if she had, I probably would have just talked through it and then gone right back into his arms. And then I remember I was like, I gotta call my mom. But the second that I call my mom and tell her, it's over. There's no way I can ever go back to this guy. And I remember sitting and having an out of body experience where I was like looking at a young version of myself sitting in the car. It was so weird. But I was like, why do you think you're strong enough to endure this?
Mhm.
Anybody else that was in this position, you would tell them to leave. You would have told them to leave years ago. So that was the moment for me. And then calling my mom, she was like, she had a feeling because something had happened earlier that kind of gave her like weird vibes about him. And she was like, I don't even need to hear what you're about to say. Come home. And
Mhm.
from there, that was my 180. And I was like, I couldn't unsee it at that point. So
Yeah.
it was such a stark difference for me. I still had a lot of healing to do after that, but like for me, there was no going back after
Yeah.
that moment.
Yeah, that's so powerful too. It's like that traumatic core memory. It's like ingrained in you. And then it like a flip switches and you don't feel that love. It's more like hit this disgust. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, my ex used to almost like he would get aroused when I was upset. And this was one thing, like, so my ex used to mask physical abuse as humor. So it was more emotional abuse, but he'd use some physical pieces to harm me. For instance, my dog, we adopted him from Puerto Rico. He's a little trauma dog, okay? He was 6 months on the streets of Puerto Rico. The shelter told us he was kicked a lot. So he doesn't like feet dangling. And when we got my dog, my ex used to purposely kick my feet so it would dangle so my dog would bite it. And it wasn't my dog's fault, of course, because he was setting it up, but I would start crying. And one time my dog like took some skin and I was hysterically crying and my abuser was getting aroused and then he was trying to have sex with me. And I'm sitting there crying, my foot's bleeding, and he's trying to have sex with me. And he's like, "Why don't you want it? What do you mean? Don't you love me?" And I'm sitting there being like, "What the fuck is happening right now? This can't be real life. This can't be real life that he's literally telling me that I need to have sex with him with a bleeding foot. That's not even like hygienic. Like, what are we doing
No.
here?"
Yeah.
And at that point, I called my friend and she was like, "What the fuck are you doing? That is not normal. That is some sick shit." And that's when I started doing more research. And I still didn't leave, but that's when I had that wake up moment. And yeah, I tried to leave so many times, but he would future fake and tell me he would go to therapy and work on it and do all that stuff that kept me hooked. But that was a real, I can envision it in my brain now, even talking about it. That was that pivotal moment that I was like, this is sick.
And
Yeah.
those behaviors are so, I like, they have some really weird behaviors that you can't even explain. And I'm sure you, as a licensed therapist, you're like, what caused this? What? Because I had a situation with my ex where he would like, he loved to spit on me, hold me down, and like spit. Like when you're a kid and you like dangle
Yeah.
spit on top of your like younger brother or sister, he would do that, but as a punishment for not being intimate with him. And I'm like, who does this? Like, this is so fucked up. And I was like, it throws you off. And it's, wait, am I the problem here? Did I deserve this in a weird way? Because you're,
Mhm.
like you said, you're in this survival mode that you don't
Mhm.
even, you can't rationalize what's happening because your brain is so focused on, when's the other shoe gonna drop? When am I gonna get my next hit of my high and my low? But yeah, their behaviors, like if you guys are trying to make sense of a narcissist's behavior, just don't because
No.
there's no sense to it.
No. No, yeah, it's all about control. One of the criteria for narcissism is the exploitation of other people.
Yeah.
So they don't see us as human beings. They don't see us as someone with feelings. They don't see us as a separate entity. They see us as what can you do to benefit me? And it's all
Exactly.
we're transactional to them. Yeah, it's how can I control you? How can you benefit me? It's all
It's
about that.
That's
Mhm.
so true. And it's like a toddler. Somebody said like, it's like having a baby that's inside a grown-up's body. And if you
Mhm.
think about it like that, you don't try to reason with a toddler. You don't try to like, and if a toddler is mean to you, you don't say, what did I do to make that toddler be mean to me? No, you'll say,
No.
okay, the toddler is just acting out. And
Yeah.
that's like how I reframe narcissism sometimes, is they're just extremely immature. So don't take their actions as personal because they act like that because that's who they are, not because of who you are or any shortcomings you have.
I call them emotional terrorists, and you can't negotiate with a terrorist, right? There's no negotiating. And it's what we call in the clinical world Peter Pan syndrome, right? It's like they're a grown man's body. They're no, it's a little boy in a grown man's body. and they're running around. And if you don't give them what they want, they have full blown temper tantrums and you're the worst. And right, well, how could you do this to me? And it's literally like a little kid, like, why can't I have a cookie before dinner? And it's insanity. And your brain is also trying to conceptualize that. I see this 30, 40, 50-year-old man in front of me, but you're acting like a 10-year-old child. What is happening right now?
So true. And that takes a little bit of ownership and shame off of us too. Because I think one thing that I've noticed of like survivors of this kind of abuse is that we live with a lot of shame and guilt, like for one, allowing this to happen to us, but also feeling like we somehow were the perpetrator in a way. But I think the way that you describe it, like as an emotional terrorist and you can't reason with them, that's right. The only way to get out of the situation is to leave the situation because they're going to continue with the cycle of abuse because they benefit from it. Of course, they're not going to stop. They're not going to all of a sudden start taking accountability. One thing that I wanted to ask you is that what do you think about going to therapy with somebody who's a narcissist?
Yes, this is the tricky piece.
Yeah.
Going to therapy with a narcissist is a complete setup for a victim. I actually went to couples counseling with my ex, and we found somebody who what happens is the abuser tends to triangulate and get the therapist on their side, especially as a therapist, we don't learn about narcissistic abuse in grad school. Okay. That's the training that I had to do on my own. So it's hard to detect this. Even as a clinician, you do special training. So, going in, it can look like you're just being erratic, you're unstable, you're just bitching at your partner, and he's doing everything he can, and you're just never satisfied, right? That's the narrative that they paint, and that you're unhinged and you're crazy. And that's what my ex used to do, to the tune of him cheating on me, and he blamed me, and the therapist co-signed it, meaning she agreed with him, being like, yeah, Nina, sometimes you can be intense, and maybe this was his way of trying to get emotional escapism in some other area. And I'm like, I can't believe this is what you're basically saying. I pushed him to cheat on me. And he's, yeah, see, if you weren't so intense, I wouldn't have done that. And I left. If the therapy, going to a therapist with a couple with an abuser is just a recipe for further trauma. You're just going to have another person validating their narrative. You're going to walk out thinking you're more crazy, that you're more unhinged, more unstable, and that you're the problem. So do not recommend. Any therapist that's trained in it would not conduct a couple session knowing that someone's an abuser. Hopefully, if you do and they assess and they realize they're an abuser, they make you go separate and go to individual counseling, because even studies suggest that further trauma occurs if you go to therapy with an abuser. Yeah.
Do you guys hear that? Going to therapy with a narcissist is a recipe for further trauma. That really stuck with me because I think people think that they'll be able to tell their side of the story, but like you said, the narcissist will completely, they use it like a stage, another stage for their persona or whatever it is. So you're never going to get the real truth out of them, and they're never going to take accountability for their part in it. And it's really sad how many people I've spoken to that have had the same experience where the therapist will actually co-sign the narcissist behavior because maybe they're not trauma informed or they can't see through it, whatever it is, but it actually makes the victim feel even worse and puts them in a deeper depression because somebody with a PhD with all these letters after their name, who they're supposed to trust, are telling them that no, you actually are the problem.
Yeah. You're having a professional reinforce their narrative. So, of course, you're like, oh, wow, now a professional said it. It must be true.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just wild. And so, another question is because I think it's important to get into the specifics of the language that abusers will use that downplay the emotional abuse. Some things that I've heard that should be red flags for people, I think, is you're too sensitive. Anytime I hear that, I'm like, abort mission, red flag. What else did you hear?
I hate that. Or you can't take a joke. You can't take feedback. You always twist my words. You're always, whenever they use something like always or never, like absolutes like that, it is damaging to any relationship, because that's never true, right? You're not always or never one thing. But that sort of languaging of you're never, right? You're always like this, you're never like this, turning it into this, like that's your identity sort of thing. So those are some ways to twist it. Always blame shifting, blaming it on them. You're too much. You're too needy. There's always my ex, every time I brought something up to him, if he like blatantly upset me and I'm like, "Hey, you know what you said upset me." There's always a problem with you. That there's always a problem. Every time I said something, it was me creating a problem. And one of the biggest red flags ever for those who are engaged, like dating, is if they say all their exes are crazy.
Oof.
Yeah, that.
That one, if they say that, let's break that down because that's essentially saying I haven't taken any responsibility for any of my parts in those relationships. I'm always wronged. I'm always the victim. I'm never the perpetrator. And I think
Mhm.
there more than likely is some victim in the relationship, but I think even you and I who have been in situations where we were clearly the victim can say, okay, maybe I did play a part in some things. There are things that I wish
Mhm.
I wouldn't have done. So I think to say that all of your exes are crazy and that there was no part that you played in that dynamic is just absurd to me. Like the lack of self-awareness is terrifying.
It's crazy making, right? I always say they're consistently inconsistent. Like
That's awesome.
because they are like they're so inconsistent. They're consistently inconsistent. They're just like what the fuck. And if you really look like if you really think about it, sometimes when I coach clients, especially that are going to court with them, I'm like, you know how your abuser is going to react. If you really take a pause and think, they're going to twist it, they're going to distort the narrative, what they're going to say. So I help my clients do like a cope ahead to almost let's deal with it now. So when you have to see them, you don't get activated or react or intense because they have similar tactics and they repeat them. Mhm.
And then, okay, so the question I get a lot too is like, how did they learn all of this? Did they all go to the same school? Did they all get the narcissist playbook in elementary school? Because for me, I think the way that I answer that question is that it usually comes from their childhood dynamics, right? Like from what I've seen, it comes from one of two dynamics. Either they were spoiled rotten as a kid, they shit sunshine, nothing they do was ever wrong, or it's the complete opposite where they were so neglected as kids that they had to put on almost this fake front to deal with these intense insecurities.
Yeah, it's either. There's also some studies suggesting now that it's just genetic. Some people are just getting born with the part of their brain. We all have a part of our brain that allows us to feel empathy. Narcissists do not have that part of the brain is not there. If you do an MRI and the gray matter, it won't show up. Like it just won't. Yeah, if you've ever seen like an MRI scan of a narcissist brain. But listen, there's diagnoses for a reason, right? We've been studying behavior for years.
Mm.
And it's just with depression, we see it. Depression looks a lack of motivation, decrease or increase of appetite. It's just behaviorism that they learn to adapt to navigate whatever it was, whether they were being abused or whether they were being basically creating a little narcissist because they were so entitled and they never got held accountable. Because if you think about it, if a mom's never, you're never punishing your kid, you're telling your kid that they're God's gift to earth, that they shit out rainbows even when they're making mistakes, the kid's going to start to learn that I can do no wrong. No one, right? Everyone else is the problem, not me, because mom
Yeah.
absolves me of any sort of onus. Yeah. So then that's how they learn how to interact with the world.
That's such a good point. And do you agree that it comes from like that underneath it all, regardless of what type of narcissist you are, covert, overt, spiritual, communal, all those different types of labels, that it underneath it all is a really fragile sense of ego?
Yeah, that is the clinical basis. It's internally complete self-loathing. They hate themselves, hence why they need this supply. Any sort of addiction, which supply is a form of addiction for them, they get that admiration and validation. It's a way to deflect from our own internal experience. So instead of looking inwards, I'm going to get a new girlfriend every 5 days. I'm going to use drugs. I'm going to drink. I'm going to have sex. I'm going to watch porn, right? All these things to an excess to
Mm,
escape looking inwards. Because people aren't miserable and people aren't like malice if they're happy with themselves. Like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that also brings up another question of can they change? And it's if they're constantly going from supply to supply, never taking a step back to look at their own actions, look at how they hurt people. It's
Mhm.
impossible for somebody to change. I don't know if
Absolutely.
you've ever seen them change, but from what I've seen, it only gets worse with time and with age.
Listen, there's no clinical studies that suggest that there's positive sustained change in narcissists. Like literally very minimal to zero studies that suggest that. Because in order to change behavior, if we think about it, there needs to be some sort of motivator for me. And this is anything in life, right? Let's say I want to be more healthy. I want to go to the gym. I don't just wake up every day now working out. Like it's going to be a struggle. I'm going to be like, do I want to eat this? Do I want to go to the gym? Same thing with them. If they don't have a buy-in, they're not going to change. And why would they have a buy-in when all their behaviors are benefiting them, whether it be in status, in not taking accountability, power, money, sex, right? They're getting all these benefits. So why am I going to change if this has been working for me for years? They're
Such
not
a good,
going.
yeah. The way that the system is set up is to reward them exactly. And it's what a sad way to live. Honestly, your relationships are so surface level. You never get to a point where you can ever be vulnerable with someone and get to know them on that level. So in a way, I feel bad for them, but not really.
I get what you're like. People say that all the time. I don't feel bad because I don't think childhood trauma gives you an excuse to abuse. I'm sorry. Everyone has experienced some form of
Yeah,
trauma in their lives and had hardships and whatever. That doesn't mean we all get like a green light to abuse and be assholes to everyone.
exactly.
So there's no justification. And also, to the point where they're so like self-loathing, like we're creatures of connection. We're hardwired to want to have connection for
Yeah.
validation. And creating connection requires vulnerability. We need to be able to connect with each other, so they will never have genuine connections with anyone, hence why they hop from one to the next. So that's not someone that's happy and satisfied with their lives. When I have clients that ask me, are they happy with the new supply? They're going to be the best version of themselves. And I'm like, no, babe. First of all, you don't just wake up one day and automatically change. You don't just change to a completely different person with different behaviors and perceptions of life in a day. And they don't have the ability to actually connect with that person. They're just using them. How can this person benefit them? That's all they're thinking about. They don't create that connection. They don't care enough to care about us.
It's such a good point. And to what you said, like we all have trauma in our life, and we, for the most part, we don't treat people like that. There's no, it's an explanation, but there's no justification for it. And I like to say even 1% of abuse in your relationship is too much. So if you find yourself like justifying these little things that you know are abuse, but you're like, oh, okay, like the good times make it worth it. No, like any sort of abuse, like the more that you allow it, so to speak, the more that you show them that you're going to stay no matter what, the more that they're going to keep pushing those boundaries and testing what more they can get away with.
It's like a toddler again, right? They always test the boundaries. What can they do? What can't they do? They're going to do the same thing and they're going to keep testing. How far can I push you? How
Yeah.
far can I go? It's
So,
really sick, again, to exploit you. All they want is to take advantage.
sorry, I keep getting this call.
That's okay.
Like flipping it. I think like, what do you think are some hidden long-term effects of these types of relationships of emotional abuse? One thing that I noticed was that I had PTSD symptoms afterwards. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night and just feel anxious for no reason, or somebody would speak to me too loudly or sneak up on me and I would like shake or jump. And I think these are little things that people might not know is coming from the relationship. I guess like what other long-term effects have you seen from this type of relationship?
Yeah, emotional abuse rewires our brain completely. The
Yeah.
cortisol levels spike. It can create a decreased immune system, weight gain, weight loss, significant depression, loss of sense of identity, questioning your worth, panic attacks, hypervigilance. Your body, I have clients whose body physically shakes, they're sweating, they have clammy hands. GI issues,
Yeah.
gastrointestinal, Crohn's disease are options because you get complex trauma, right? It's what we call CPTSD, which
Yeah.
PTSD is the traditional war, life threatening. Complex PTSD is attachment trauma. So, a betrayal trauma you experience with another human being. So, that's what is so complicated because it completely rewires the way that we interact with others. Now, I no longer trust anybody because I'm so on edge. I think everyone's a threat because it rewired my nervous system, the part of me that allows me to interact with the world. Now, I think everything is a threat, everything's dangerous. So that's why it's so hard to even recreate relationships after, even genuine friendships. I don't trust anyone. Everyone's out to hurt me. You almost become paranoid. And the part of the brain, the amygdala, shrinks. So the part of and the hippocampus, which is the part of our brain that allows for memory, it shrinks. So that's why it's so difficult to discern new information. So we're more susceptible to gaslighting because we're like, wait, did that happen? Did it not? We literally black out memories because that part of our brain is shrinking. We can't retain new information. So that's why even now, I know we were talking earlier, like sometimes I black out some parts of my abuse too. I don't remember it all because that part of my brain has shrunk. Can it be fixed? Yes, with therapy and clinical interventions. Yes, you can absolutely help re-stabilize your brain, but there's long, significant impacts that occur.
Wow, I know. And the gut issue was something that I had too. Like, I had a sensitivity to gluten afterwards, which is so odd because I'd never had that problem beforehand. And it fixed itself over the course of a couple years as I started to heal and my body started to learn that, okay, you're safe. Everything's okay now.
Mhm.
But like you were mentioning the GI issues, I think a lot of stress and trauma is stored in our gut, our nervous system, of course, too. But some people will say, my stomach has been hurting. I've been having cramps. I've been having all these issues. Could it be from this relationship? And I think so, like from what you're saying.
110%. Mental symptoms can manifest in physical symptoms. When your body sometimes connects the dots before your brain can. I've had even clients like say that like they broke out in hives and rashes and they didn't understand why, and I was like, that was your body screaming, you're in danger, get out, you're in danger, because your brain wasn't ready to conceptualize the fact that you were being abused.
Yeah.
So the body holds that trauma and it's trying to communicate with you. So definitely if you're experiencing that, I would assess if it's your relationship, and you can go to a trauma therapist that can do an assessment on that. I do them with my clients all the time. Yeah.
I think one thing that I had as well was hair loss. I don't know if
Mm.
you suffered that, but I think it was probably intertwined with the stress that I was feeling in the relationship. Like my hair was falling out. Like I had these like cute little bald patches on the side of my head that are only starting to get better now. But
Uh,
I was like, there's no way this could be from the trauma and the abuse of this relationship. And it was delayed. It started falling out after I left, which is so odd to me. But like you're saying, like so much of that stress is stored and our
Mhm.
body is going to give us these warning signs beforehand. So it's if you're seeing all of these warning signs and everything else is good in your life, work is good, family life is good, friends are good, take a look at your relationship and see if it's causing you some sort of stress that your body is manifesting.
Yeah, literally, that's because that even when you're in the relationship, we don't want to accept that it's our relationship. Like for me, I was so depressed. I gained 60 pounds in a year. And the irony is I would gain weight and then my abuser would use that as an excuse to withhold affection, saying, you don't make me want to have sex with you. Why would I want to touch you? You don't take care of yourself. And I was not taking care of myself as a result of being abused, right? It's because I was traumatized and my cortisol levels were completely fucked to the point your metabolism can get fucked up. Mine did. So I gained weight so fast and I wasn't happy in the job I was in and I was having family struggles. So it was always everything else. It can't be my boyfriend, right? It can't be my partner. It's my job. It's this, it's whatever. So we try to look at anything else first when in reality, it could really just be that your partner is an abuser.
Ooh, tough realization to come to. And like you were saying, and a couple people asked, dating afterwards. It's really hard. It's hard because you have your antennas up, which is a good thing, right? For the most part, you're not gonna fall for any of the tactics because you can spot them so easily now. But
Mhm.
it brings you to this like state of frustration and almost hopelessness because you're like, okay, one out of every million guys is eligible now, and it's like it's really difficult to date. Like, how long have you been out of that relationship?
I've been out now for 3 years.
Have you
Um,
had anything serious since?
I remember the first person I tried to date after, and because the love bombing rewires your perception of romance. If the new guy or girl, whatever your sexual orientation is, if they're not love bombing me and telling me I'm God's gift to earth, I'm like, do you even like me? Like, do you even want me? Because we're not getting that surplus of that dopamine hit. Because again, we're all wired for connection and love. It's our birthright. We all want that. But when we receive that surplus, that's what we expect always.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we almost trick ourselves like, this person's not that into me. And then we end up self-sabotaging, and we end up almost possessing same qualities that our narcissist was doing to us, again, as a survival strategy, because we're on edge. So we assume that they're always lying, right? We assume that they have a secondary motive. Do they really like me? What's their second, what are they trying to get at? They're trying to abuse me. We assume that they're dangerous. So it's really hard to try to ground yourself and challenge those thoughts of, hold on, this is not what's happening right now. This is a
Mm.
product of my past. This is what's happened to me. Um,
Exactly. I think one of the ways that I've tried to combat that is that in my relationship with my ex, my abuser, I held so much of it in. I didn't tell anybody anything that was happening. Thought that, one, I think I was a little ashamed. Two, it was an ego thing where I didn't want people to think my relationship wasn't perfect. And I think there was also like that hidden threat of, if you tell anybody, things are going to get worse. So for me now, I overshare with my family. Anytime I go on a date, anybody that I'm talking to, I tell my family everything, because that way they can keep me honest. So if I say, "Oh, this guy's not really into me," they're like, "Hasn't he wanted to see you every time you've had a date? He's tried to initiate a second date, or he sends you good morning messages." And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Okay, maybe this is a decent relationship. It's not the love bombing that I'm used to. It's like that
mhm,
slow burn relationship that people talk about." So I
uh-huh.
think one way that I've combated that is just being extremely open and like wanting other people's feedback too, because I think the more you can do that, the more you can start retraining yourself to think like that too. And I think you'll get to a point where you don't need so many people's opinions and viewpoints, but I think that outside perspective is so important when you're getting back into relationships.
It's one of the healing steps, right? Creating safe and emphasis on safe relationships that are healthy, that are people that genuinely care about you, that want the best for you, because we're trying to rewire our nervous system to remind ourselves that relationships can be safe and I
Mm-hmm.
can trust these people. So it's like a two for one. It's that piece. And to your point, getting that validation, because we don't trust ourselves anymore after being gaslit. We've essentially started to believe that our judgment and our perception's incorrect. So we seek validation from others. And one of the like one sign that you are healing is not seeking that validation as much. Being able to reassure yourself, being like, you know what, I know that was fucked up what they said. I don't need Marcella to validate that. I already know. That's the sign that, fuck yeah, I'm healing. I don't need,
Yes.
so it's awesome.
I think
Um,
another sign is asking yourself those questions. If you're asking yourself, like, why did they do this? Or just, I think the fact of going to therapy, going to coaching, asking the tough questions, to me, that's already a sign that you're healing, because you're wanting to see why they act like this, because you already have some sort of nugget in your head that knows that it's wrong. So I think people think that healing is having clarity and healing is knowing what to do all the time. But no, I think healing is being able to ask the right questions, noticing things that are happening, which sounds like obvious now that I'm saying it out loud. But I think
no, but
if,
that's valid.
right?
Bringing awareness to what's happened, because we were in denial. We were experiencing that abuse, but not even acknowledging what it was at the time. That's what also allows us to stay, because denial's one hell of a defense mechanism, right? It's what we call betrayal blindness,
Yeah.
where our brain can't accept the fact that someone we love is also abusing us. We're like, ew, they make those jokes on Instagram. I can't see the red flags, but literally we can't, right? Like we're blinded to the red flags because we don't want to believe that such evil actually exists in somebody that we call our lover, somebody that we trust, somebody that we created all these future plans with. It's so bleak, isn't
It
it?
is. And then realizing that, do I even know this person? The person that I spent years with is that's a pretty terrifying realization to come to, is that you can spend so much time with somebody and still not know who they are. That I had to come to terms with too. And I was like, wow, I thought I was a good judge of character. That's where some of the guilt comes in. I am educated. I have a good family. How did this happen to me? And you have to take some of that onus off of you because it is like dealing with a toddler. Just like you wouldn't reconcile with a toddler or negotiate with a terrorist, you have to remind yourself that this is them. Has nothing to do with me.
They're predators. They spot us and they find us and they know exactly how to read our weakest points, our vulnerabilities, and they know how to again, exploitation of other people is one of the criteria for this diagnosis. So they know exactly how to say what to say to exploit you. So it's like equivalent to blaming a woman for wearing a dress and getting sexually assaulted. She didn't
Mm,
want it. I didn't want it. I was lied to. I was manipulated. I was gaslit. That's not my fault. That's his fault for doing that to me.
yeah.
I was just a self compassionate person that wanted love. And that's something they weaponize too. The more compassionate you are, the more you're going to try to blame yourself. Because again, our brains are wired to try to solve problems.
Yes.
So if they're trying to blame you, you're going to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have said it like this. Maybe he's right. Because if
Mhm.
I'm the problem, I can control it and I can change it and I can fix it. So they really weaponize these beautiful, the compassion's a beautiful quality to have, but
Yes.
sometimes we need to reflect on, am I using this compassion ineffectively? Who really needs the compassion here, me or this person? Because
Wow.
it's not always me. I'm not always the problem.
Worse.
Yeah.
I like to say that your compassion isn't the issue, it's the people that exploit it that are. Because, yeah, it can be a blessing and a curse. I think it's a blessing. I don't think it's a curse. I think the right people are going to see it and the wrong people are going to exploit it. And it's on us to make sure that moving forward, we know the warning signs and we know that I struggle with the word victim sometimes because that was a really hard word for me to put myself under that umbrella because I was like, no, like I I could have done something to get myself out of this. And I think that when you're in the relationship, it's not any sort of enabling. You're trying to survive. You're really trying to protect yourself. But I think once you're out of it, it is on us to recognize the warning signs and protect ourselves from that in the future. So I think, what do you think are some of the first steps that people can take if they realize that they're in a dynamic like this?
Even before I answer that question, I just wanted to, because what you were saying makes so much sense, right? We need to be able to bring awareness so we don't recreate it. Because somebody commented, if you're from a narcissistic family, you're going to attract narcissistic people. And to that point, we're creatures of habit. We recreate what's familiar. And a lot of people confuse familiar with comfortability. Now, you're not
Mm.
comfortable in this. So it's familiar, but it's not comfortable because you're being abused. And just because it's familiar doesn't mean that you should tolerate it. Because again, our nervous system is wired to seek out what it already knows because the devil I know is less scary than the devil I don't. So I'm going to chase that, right? I know.
Mhm.
And being able to recognize, then going to your question, being able to recognize the red flags is crucial so you don't end up engaging in that relationship again or continuing to perpetuate. So educating yourself. Education is prevention. One of the first signs is when you meet somebody and they're immediately obsessed with you and want to spend all their time with you, that is not real
Oof.
because they don't know you well enough to even love you, let alone be obsessed with you. That's not normal. And if they want to spend all their time with you, that's also not normal because there needs to be that balance of life because them wanting to spend time with you, it sounds cute, it sounds romantic, but that's actually their way of subtly trying to isolate you from your activities and your people.
Yes, it's if I can spend all of my time with you, I can make sure that you're never around people who are going to poke holes in what I'm doing or who are going to call out the things that I'm doing. That's why I say no contact and getting space from people like this is so important when you're feeling confused because it's going to give you clarity. Because the more time that you spend outside of them, that you don't have this tether to them anymore, you're going to get yourself in a place where you feel safe enough to start thinking and to start rationalizing again. You're going to remove yourself from like survival mode and get to a point where you're like, "Oh, huh. Those things those things are red flags and I can only reconcile those now because I'm not deep into survival mode anymore."
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think
Um,
somebody just asked, "How do you maintain no contact?" Maybe we can go into the Q&As because they're popping up right now.
yeah.
How do you do it?
Given your situation, if you have the luxury of going no contact, like blocking them on everything, whenever you feel that need, block, first of all, make sure they can't contact you, block them on everything. And then whenever you're feeling that craving of wanting to reach out to them, I want you to turn that inwards and self reflect. What am I needing right now? What am I seeking when I want to reach out to this person? Because it's not really this person, because we know they're gonna respond in an abusive way. They're not going to give us the validation. They're not going to give us the closure. They're not going to say what we want them to say. What am I seeking? Okay, I'm seeking connection. I want someone to say that they see me, they hear me, they understand me. I'm seeking that sense of closure. How can I get that in a healthy way? And what does that look like? Maybe calling a safe friend, journaling, go engage in some self care, go for a walk, go distract yourself until that craving goes away and try to meet that need internally instead of seeking that external validation.
I love that. And it's also reminding yourself that it's like an addiction. So just if you're withdrawing from whatever addiction, alcohol, drug, you know it's bad for you and you know that if you go back, it might feel good for that moment, but the withdrawal afterwards is going to be even worse. So if you can position this person as your drug and your dealer at the same time, yeah, it's going to feel good, but don't do it because it's going to make it a lot harder for you to heal afterwards.
Yeah, someone can't be the poison and the cure. And why would we trust the person who shattered our sense of self to be the person to pick it back up and fix us? That's insanity. It's insanity to be like, yeah, you fucked me up. Now come fix me. Like, why would I trust them to do that? I'm going to go somewhere else. So but I get it when we're in it, right? It's fucking nuts. I did the same. I'm like, yeah, he's the only one that can fix me. But he's the only one, right? He broke me, but he's gonna fix me. And when you're out of it, I laugh now because I'm so like separate. You have to laugh to cope with it sometimes,
You
you
got
know?
to laugh or else you'll cry. That's what I
Exactly.
what I say. But also that was how I coped with it in the beginning is I would make jokes, like really dark jokes that like were not funny at the time, I'm sure to other people. My mom's
Same.
this man was physically abusive to you and you're like making jokes about it. And I'm like, yeah, and it doesn't minimize what I went through. I hope that's not what people think, but it's just sometimes easier to talk about things in a humorous way because if it's too serious, like I don't know, you already feel the seriousness. You already know the weight of the situation. You might as well approach it with some positivity and some levity. It's not going to change what happened in the past, but it is going to
Mm.
help you have a different mindset moving forward.
Yeah, it lightens the mood, and
Yeah.
it also takes you out of I'm the victim, so that's not your full identity. Take back some control, put some humor in it, spice it up a little bit. Um,
Spice the abuse up.
Trauma made me funny.
Literally, that's what they like. I'm like huge into comedy and just like
So,
going to comedy shows and stuff, but they always say that the best comedians are the ones that had the most trauma.
facts.
Which, yeah, I get it. It gives you a certain like skin, like a different layer to you almost.
Mhm.
And I think it also, yeah, it lightens the mood. So I try to bring that whenever I can. But yeah, like you said about the no contact piece, the more that you can do it and the quicker that you can do it, I know it's hard to click the block button, but if you're not, like, you're essentially waiting for them to reach out to you. And if for you, closing that gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do is so important. And I think that's something we touched on like in counseling and in coaching, self-awareness piece. Now it's action. What actions are you going to take to close that gap?
That's why I think it's crucial to work with a qualified coach or a therapist because you need that guidance, somebody to help support you through this because your brain is going to try to rationalize and minimize again as a way to protect you from the pain as well because it is so painful to come to that realization. So oftentimes our brain tries to minimize it. So having that coach or that mentor, the therapist that you can ping pong ideas off of and say, hey, this happened, so they can concretely be like, yes, this was
Mhm.
abuse,
Yes.
is crucial, I think.
The validation is so important because you're not going to be able to give it to yourself when you're deep into it, and your abuser is
Mhm.
definitely not going to give it to you.
Never.
So, if you're feeling like you're in something like this, talk to somebody about it. If you don't
Mhm.
feel comfortable talking to your family or friends about it, or if your family or friends are the issue, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist. Maybe
Yeah.
don't talk to ChatGPT because I feel like ChatGPT can sometimes like just tell you what you want to hear and not what you need to hear.
Yeah, no. And also there's everyone's coming out. ChatGPT is not, you're not protected by that. So if any of you go to court, they can subpoena those records and whatever you said in there, it can completely screw you over.
Okay,
Yeah,
note that, guys.
don't be putting vulnerable shit in on ChatGPT about your abuser, especially if you have a court case, you will fuck yourself over. They can
Whew.
subpoena it. Yeah. So don't use ChatGPT, guys. Go to a professional.
Oh my gosh, that is such a mic drop moment. I think this has been such a good talk with you, Nina. Like emotional abuse is it leaves
Mhm.
marks even if nobody can see that. And we are here to tell you that you are not overreacting. You are
Yes.
not imagining anything, and you don't have to wait for it to get worse or for it to get physical, God forbid, for you to take action. So that's
Yeah.
what I want to leave people with.
I agree. Just because you can't see the bruises doesn't mean the damage isn't there. The wounds may be invisible, but they do cut just as deep. So you're not alone. We hear you, we see you, we believe you, and we're here to support you if you need.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and
Mhm.
thank you so much for co-hosting this with me. I want to do this weekly, monthly, however often I can get you on here.
I would love to do that for real. I'm totally down. Let's talk about that. Uh-huh.
Yay! Okay,
Uh-huh.
where can people find you? I know they have your Instagram. Where else are you?
I'm on TikTok as well. The funny thing, I accidentally misspelled narcissism on my TikTok and they won't let me change it for 30 days. So that's embarrassing. But it should be narcissism without the second I with Nina on TikTok. And then my website is ninabatistacounseling.com. You can shoot me a DM or shoot me an email, hello@ninabatistacounseling.com. And yeah, I take one-on-one coaches as well. I have a coaching program and therapy clients. So
I could have used you back in the day. So everybody go talk to
thank
Nina because
you.
she is that girl. And I
Thank
love
you.
like the clinical piece that you bring to it too, because you have being able to describe it in like the scientific way, the clinical way, take some of that onus off of us too. Hey, this your brain's playing tricks on you. Let's fix that.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm here to debunk any sort of myths.
Yeah. You're awesome. Thank you so much, Nina. And I'm gonna post this on my page, and I think Nina, you're gonna post it on your page too.
Yes, please. I would love to.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.